My name is Nicole, and I'm going to be talking about what I've learned in ECS 410. So, to begin, I want to start with my assessment philosophy. I believe that students should be assessed in such a way that improves their academic skills. I believe that students should know what is being assessed. I believe that students should know how to fulfill requirements for an assignment, whether that be via rubric or checklists, etc. I believe assessment should be here to help but not to diminish students. I believe assessments should be spread throughout the course and not crammed into one section of the course. Give the students some breathing air. Assessment should be multimodal and cater to the needs of students, but also set up in such a way that the assignment will every so often push the student out of their comfort zone. So what is assessment? In my opinion, assessment is more than formative for the students and summative summary of learning. Assessment is meant to help people improve, whether it be in an academic setting or career setting. As highlighted in my assessment philosophy, students should not be diminished when being assessed. Being assessed should be for the purpose of helping and pushing for improvement. Assessment can be done through many forms, whether it be checklists or exit slips, think, pair, shares, KWL charts, feedback, both oral and written, rubrics, success criteria. The possibilities are endless. We can know if a student understands what we are asking if they've read the feedback and realize, oh yeah, I did need to specify more on that topic, or I agree, I did not work as hard as I should have. I did not quite understand the instructions and the end goal. In other words, there should be no surprises. To expand on this definition, with the support of class resources to further deepen my understanding, Brown, Race, and Smith, from their article, I pulled a few snippets. Assessment should be authentic and transparent, so again, no surprises, but be genuine. Another quote, formative assessment should start as early as possible in a course module. I think this should be put into practice as well, because if there's any issues or discrepancies, the teachers can know in the early stages of the unit and make changes as needed to benefit the students and their learning and help enhance help enhance and make sure the learning is successful. Another thing we have talked about is co-creating rubrics, and I think that is a good idea to sit down with students and come up with success criteria and instructions together so that they are held accountable, as well as gives them a chance for their voice to be heard. This can also help address multimodal learning and provide options for the assignments, such as maybe the kids want to do place-based learning, or maybe they want to do an inquiry piece, or have different options for the assignment. According to the article by Rossrell and Walsh, it is undeniable that students now require a repertoire of both print and digital literacy practices for their future workplace and life. So assess with the times, which leads to new literacies, which leads to new skills that pertain to the era of the present and the future. I am talking about technological literacies. Can a student type efficiently, function a computer, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint? But a question that came about was, how do we assess children when maybe not all of them have access to the present technology? The school must provide those tools and help students needs to learn, such as computers or nowadays iPads, smartboards, laptops, etc., as I've seen in class. But how does one know if the student knows and is able to do something? Why do we worry if they know how to use an iPad? Isn't the process different for all learners? This is just the flip side. There are few other questions I thought about as I pondered this idea of new literacies. My response? The product should be something relatively the same yet unique. The same in such a way that there's evidence of learning, but unique as to what each student has learned over the courses. But how do people know what the end goal is? Rubrics. I like to use rubrics in my classroom. However, I found a quote in the beginning of Lisa Blanset's anti-rubric rubric. The quote is, I'm not a big proponent of grading rubrics in part because I think they can reduce the work of writing an essay to a list of very vague criteria. First of all, I think it's vague if the creators make it vague. Like, I get we cannot determine if a student is possessing creativity, but she mentions and proposes a question of how a thesis is strong. To solve this, I think you would actually teach the class beforehand what makes a thesis strong, and based off that jumping point, include and mark it in the rubric. Back to this idea of creativity, though, I feel like you can measure it to an extent if you know your students well. I am a person who promotes creativity, even if it's a totally different art process or a different art outcome, for instance. If I know a drawing student decides to incorporate a medium they don't normally work with, I know that they are 1, trying new things, 2, pushing themselves out of their comfort zone, and 3, envisioning something that they're trying to create that they might not normally create. In regards to rubrics as well, they can't be vague, yet also cannot be too specific in my opinion, because then you're just factory producing results. Each student will learn something different in the art classes, but at least they will learn something. So, shifting gears a bit, another question I want to address or discuss is an underlying assumptions that might inform our decisions about assessment and evaluation in classrooms. How can we work to disrupt these assumptions? I think also with a new class every term, to not judge a class or make assumptions about expectations based on previous years. We should give every student, a benefit of the doubt and not be stereotypical. Perhaps not only disrupt those assumptions based on performance of the previous class, but maybe assess different to cater to the needs of your students by doing pre-assessment and exit slips on what the students like or feel comfortable to do. In my future classroom, I definitely want to create rubrics and have the expectations created with my students so they are accountable for it. Based off a reading of co-creating criteria, a quote is, "Introducing the co-creating criteria should begin with a simple process that allows students to voice their opinions in the classroom. Multiple methods can be used to introduce the technique to the students for the first time. One such method can occur when implementing classroom rules and expectations. The key is to have the students actively involved. If you do not engage students, they will get bored, zone out, and not pay attention, and therefore this disrupts learning. I've had this happen before. I would engage students by providing a hook based on a topic of their interest, or create an inquiry-based or place-based project so they each can choose something they would be interested in for a major project. Also, another way to keep them engaged is a cosmopolitanism classroom. So this was from an article, I can't quite remember, Emden's 7 C's. So the quote is, allowing students to feel as though they're not just guests in the school, but active participants in how these spaces operate is a powerful step in connecting them to their academic content. Excuse me. As students take on certain operational aspects of the school and classroom, they develop relationships with one another around making the school and classroom work. In this article, Edmund's 7 C's this stuck out to me as it can help students feel like they are part of the school community, which obviously they are, by giving them a sense of responsibility, whether it be designing labs or assignments, but even grading or being a teacher helper. Additionally, throughout the term, I would also push and pull students to try new things, as mentioned beforehand, to push them out of their comfort zone ever so slightly to expose them to new things and forms of assessment. These forms, in addition to exit slips, could be KWL charts, which I find helps hold myself accountable whenever I fill one out. Think, pair, share, so students can find a buddy and talk about what they learn. I find talking about things helps me retain information because I'm regurgitating the information. For visual art, in addition to critiques, I think that peer assessment as well as check-ins could be beneficial. Additionally, I feel like self-evaluation will help solve the question, how do we measure creativity? The student is accountable for his or her own work. They know how much to push themselves. So from the PowerPoint presentation in one of the weeks in class, research indicates that self-assessment is crucial to improve learning. Self-assessment encourages students to set higher learning goals and provide greater effort to the learning. And this is from a quote from Wellheiser in 1996. Also, the placemat exercise is one that I think would be good to use in my future art class. You pretty much take a placemat or a piece of paper, divide it into 4 sections or how many people are in the group. And then in the middle is like one big question. And then you have each person fill out each block with their opinion, and then you find a commonality between all of them. To link, shifting gears a bit, to link to outcomes is crucial in assessment. So I took a grade 6 arts ed. So CP 6.1, which is the art section, investigate and use various visual art forms, images, and art making processes to express ideas about identity. There's also CP 6.1, number 2, which is demonstrate increased skills of problem-solving abilities in a variety of visual media. So a form of an assessment for this could be a project on researching different artists and finding one that connects to the students. And then when the learned understanding of the style of the artist, or with the learned understanding of the style of the artist, create a piece that provides a visual narrative or fact about the student's identity. The assessment portion would be a checklist and ties into the next outcome, which is demonstrate increased skills and problem-solving abilities in a variety of visual art media. Tech, so this would tie into the next outcome, this outcome that I just mentioned. So using a rubric and documentation of process when creating the art piece and then researching the artist. So the kids would create a file folder, perhaps maybe with reflective journaling or some sort of writing or audio recordings. And the only issues I find with this though would be that if the student leaves this to the last minute and rushes the process, they will provide minimal documentation. They would provide 7 days worth all in one day, and it's just not authentic and not real. So overall, I could go on, but due to my time limit, I can't. I think that this class was very beneficial, and I learned a lot about assessment, like different forms, as I've touched on previously in my discussion. Yeah, so bye bye.